Welcome to Life on the Other Side, stories from prisoners, their families, and those helping them find justice and redemption with Alec Klein. This podcast is sponsored by Republic Book Publishers, which brings you books tackling the important issues of the day and the upcoming book Aftermath, When It Felt Like Life Was Over by Alec Klein. For more information, please check out republicbookpublishers.com. In this episode, we hear from Charlie Parker, whose wife was falsely accused of medical child abuse before she was set free and reunited with her family in Oregon. Thanks for joining us, Charlie.
I'm happy to be here.
Tell us about your life as a family before Kate was arrested.
Well, Joshua was sick. Okay, I mean, we did expect him to die.
Your son?
Yes, my son. And we did things together. I mean, we had a good time.
Right. It's a big family, right, Charlie?
We have a big family, yes. At the time, we had 8 children, as well as myself and Kate.
What was daily life like for you all back then before the troubles began?
Well, I worked 60 hours a week. I mean, so obviously I wasn't there a whole lot. I mean, because I was the sole provider. And
tell us what you were doing at the time.
I was working at a restaurant as a manager. And,
60 hours. That's a long week.
Yes, it is. I was on salary. I mean,
right.
So it was. It was a long week, and sometimes it was even longer. Sometimes I worked even more than 60. So,
wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was life like for you back then, as you would be working quite long hours and then come home? What was family life like back then?
Well, a lot of times I wouldn't know what was going on at home. I mean, because I was working 60 hours a week. And I would come home and try to spend as much time with the kids and Kate as I could. I mean, but, a lot of times I would just come home, go to bed, and get up and go back to work. So,
right.
But like I said, we did do things. I mean, we went, out to the woods and to the beach and things like that still. I mean, things that families normally do, barbecues and things like that. So,
to what extent was faith important in your family life?
Oh, it was very important. I mean, we went to church. I mean, every Sunday we prayed and things like that. Read the Bible. I mean, so it has always been an important part of our family life. Trusting in God has always been, a very important thing. So
it must have been quite a shock when all of this was upended, and your wife, Kate, was accused of medical child abuse. I mean, tell us how you experienced hearing about this. What was this like for you?
It was a shock. I mean, because for at least a year, we were believing that Joshua was going to die. I mean, so
that's what the doctor said.
Because that is what the doctors told us, yes. And I took that extremely hard. I mean, it was very difficult. I mean, knowing that my son was going to die. So and knowing that I sort of withdrew into myself. So, and I know that wasn't a very good thing to do, but it was a reality.
What does that look like, Charlie, when you were withdrawing within yourself?
Well, by nature, I'm an introvert. And when I withdraw into myself, it means that I get very quiet. I don't talk. I like to be by myself a lot. Things like that. I mean, it's I don't express my feelings. I mean, and that is what was happening at that time. It's like, and a lot of times I still don't express my feelings, but I've gotten a lot better doing it.
But so what you're describing is that it was actually a pretty tough time even before Kate was accused of anything, because you thought your son was going to die, and that's what the doctors had said.
And how did they describe this to you, the condition that your son was in?
How did they describe it? But from what I know is that I know that he had his Chiari malformation. I mean, and of course the spina bifida and things like that. So as well as the chromosome abnormalities, which played a huge role in his sickness. So
this must have been quite a shock then to hear that suddenly Kate, your wife, was being accused of medical child abuse when you'd received this diagnosis from doctors about your son. I mean, how did you sort of process all of that?
I couldn't believe it. I mean, because I had seen everything that was going on, and part of our family dynamics was I went to work and Kate took care of the children. I mean, and so seeing her being accused of medical child abuse was it was shocking. I mean, because I was going, no, that's not what I'm seeing, and that's not what I've experienced. I mean, because I saw things that were going on. I mean, I may not have expressed it and things like that, but I trusted Kate explicitly.
Let me ask you this. Now, you were not home, I believe, when she was arrested, but I think Megan, your daughter, called you. Is that right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about that moment when you got the call finding out that Kate was being arrested. Do you remember that moment?
I do somewhat. It was surreal. It's like, she's what? And I have to come home? It's like, I'm at work. I can't do that. You know, those thoughts that go through your head, and then it sinks in. It's like, wait a minute. I've got to go home. I have to go home, and I have to go home now. I'm leaving. So it was hard to believe until I actually came home and saw it and saw the state the children were in, and it was unreal.
And suddenly your life was turned upside down. Some of your kids were put into foster care. Suddenly, right?
Right. That happened the next day. I mean, so the judge looked at us and said, you know what, I've kept, you know, the kids out of foster care and DHS, but it's time. It's like they need to go to foster care, and we need to get this sorted out.
That must have been yet another shock. Your wife is arrested, and the next day your kids are put into foster care.
It was a huge shock. I took a month off from work because of it, because I didn't handle it. Or I could handle it, but I just didn't want to be at work at that time. So,
well, I guess that was a third shock. You suddenly go from working 60 hours a week at the restaurant to suddenly being the primary caregiver. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that experience. Suddenly you're thrust in this situation that's hard to even understand. What was that like in this month when you were trying to keep everything together?
Well, knowing that they could blame me for part of this also, I know that what I did and what I was feeling is I was scared too. I mean, because I was afraid that they would come and arrest me also. And then the kids wouldn't have anybody. And Kate and I would be absolutely separated completely. I mean, so what I did is I slept on the couch in my clothes.
Why?
Why? Because I didn't want to be caught off guard if they were to show up at my door. I mean, and, you know, was sleeping in my pajamas or whatever, and I couldn't sleep in the same bed that Kate and I did.
Wow.
So it was it was hard to do. I mean, and then having the kids gone too, the house was very empty. And I'm the type of person who has to be going at all times. I very rarely rest. And so what I did is I cleaned the house from top to bottom. I mean, because I had to do something. And that is a feeling for me that I couldn't do anything. It's like it was just, I couldn't fix it. I couldn't get Kate out of jail. I couldn't get my kids back from foster care. I mean, and I was helpless. I felt helpless.
That's overwhelming.
Yeah, it really is. And so I had to keep myself busy so I didn't think about it.
And this went on for quite some time. Is that right, Charlie? I mean,
It went on for 10 months.
That must have been a tough 10 months.
It was, because I had to jump through DHS hoops. And at the beginning, they were telling me that I was incompetent. My son David likes to call me an incompetent boob as a joke. And I am not incompetent. It's they just didn't know our family dynamics.
Which were what, by the way?
Which were, as Kate took care of the children and I went to work. And so a lot of times I didn't know exactly what was going on at home because I was gone 60 hours a week, but that doesn't mean that I was incompetent and that I wasn't involved.
Right.
I have always been involved with my children.
This sounds like quite a scary time, because you were obviously worried about Kate, and she had been taken away. Your children had been taken away. You'd been taken away from your own job. And, did you rely on anything to kind of get you through this? Was there any support system or your faith that kind of helped you manage this?
My faith was there. Absolutely. I mean, I think that was the time that I have actually been closest to God.
Tell me about that.
I know that I was reading Streams in the Desert. I can't remember who it's by. But I know that I was doing the devotion with that every single day. And I actually sent a copy of it to Kate in jail. And I know that I was praying a lot, and it was just, God gave me verses and things that believe it or not, Kate got the same verses a lot of the times too. So it was just, we know that God was in the midst of everything that we were going through.
You felt God?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely.
And could you actually hear what God was saying?
Could I hear him as in an audible voice? No. I don't think anybody does that. But you could just feel. It's when he was speaking to, when he speaks to you, you can just feel it. I mean, but you know that you know.
Yeah.
So it's a hard feeling to describe.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So you're going through this terrible family ordeal. Mm-hmm. It's hard to even describe, but then suddenly a miracle happens, I suppose, which is that you find out that Kate is going to be coming home. You're going to be reunited as a family. And what was your reaction when you found out that finally your wife was coming home?
Oh, it was a wonderful feeling. I mean, knowing that she was going to be here. But of course, I had actually been able to see her at least once a month. I mean, for I think it was like 6 months. No, 6 or 7, 8 months. I can't remember how long. But with the lawyers supervising, I was actually able to see her, and I'm not going to say it wasn't much of a thrill. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I know the kids were much more excited than I was because I had actually seen her. But to have her home, that was wonderful. I mean, it was just to be able to, talk to her as much as I wanted to and see her and kiss her and hug her and just having her here was just... And I didn't have to go to the grocery store anymore.
I mean, how had life changed by that point when she returned? Because you had been pretty much on your own with Megan running the house.
How had life changed? Oh my gosh. when the kids came home, it was in January of 15. When they came home, I kept them in public school until the end of the year, except for Emily. And so I was, let's see, doing the cooking, the cleaning, the taking them to school, grocery shopping, paying the bills, taking them to the doctor, taking them to the dentist. I mean, everything. I mean, I was doing everything as a single father for, let's see, 5 kids. I mean, because Adam and Megan were adults. So,
right.
So going from, having a wife to being a single father for a year, it was challenging. It really was.
Did it change you at all?
Yeah, it made me appreciate exactly what Kate did. And it got me closer to my children. I mean, and I had switched jobs, so I was only working like 30 hours a week. So I had a lot of fun. I really did. We went places, we did things together. I mean, and I really got to know them a lot more than I had. So
some good actually came from all of that suffering.
Yes, it did.
So what was it like when Kate came home? Did things go back to the way they were before?
Well, as far as her doing the groceries and cleaning, and yes, it did. But was it like before? No, it was not. I mean, because
how so? Yeah.
Well, we were more guarded as a family. It's been a long haul learning how to trust again, which a lot of us still don't trust a lot of people. Yeah, and Kate did die too, and then came back to life.
Right, you described that. That must have been
Yes.
in itself sort of a scary moment when she had the heart attack.
It was. Well, actually, she had a cardiac arrest. There was a difference.
Yeah.
So, but it was a scary moment, yes. I wasn't actually at home when she did, but, going up to the hospital and seeing her, with all the tubes and wires and being on that ice, that was, it was scary. It really was. I was really afraid we were going to lose her.
The ice. Can you explain that?
Where they take like these ice packs and just pack her whole body in these ice packs, and I guess it slows down the metabolism to reduce any internal damage and things that the cardiac arrest does. So I'm not exactly sure how it works, but that's what I understand it to work.
But so basically, you lose your wife for a time to a wrongful accusation. Your children are taken out of the home and put into foster care. Mm-hmm. Then, even after she gets back and you're reunited as a family, she has cardiac arrest. I mean, did at any point you kind of say, okay, when is this going to end?
I still do sometimes. Yes. It's like, when is this going to end? It's like,
what do you mean? Well, tell me about that. I mean, what are things like now today? I mean, after all these years, you've finally come back together as a family. Well,
we're still wary of DHS coming back or the police showing up at our door again. Or things just falling apart, and it's when you go through trauma like that, you look at things differently. It's like, okay, how is this going to affect me? It's like, if I do this over here, how is it going to affect me here? And if something comes along down the pike, how are we going to handle that? I mean, it just, you look at it differently because you're always looking, well, not always, but looking for things to happen that, I don't know how to describe this.
You're talking about being vigilant.
Being vigilant, yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So even to this day, you're vigilant.
Yes, because when we hear about things like this coronavirus thing, it's like we're going, okay, how are we going to prepare for this? How is it going to affect our family? How is it going to affect us mentally and physically and things like that? And so you're always looking at things in a different light, because you're always wary of things that are coming towards you.
Where are you now in your life, and after all that you've been through?
I know that Kate and several of the kids are going to college, and I am completely in support of that. As far as myself, I just live from day to day. Mm-hmm. Truly. I mean, that's pretty much the way I've always been, and I still am. I just live from day to day, to where Kate and the kids look to the future and all that sort of stuff, and they go, the future will take care of itself. So I have a perfect yard. And that's pretty much what I do is, take care of the yard, take care of the house, things like that. Yeah. I mean, and really enjoy doing it. So,
does it make you appreciate the small things after everything you've been through? You are together as a family, all of you.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it definitely makes me appreciate things. I see what our kids do, like Sarah with her art, and Emily with her art, and Joshua with his gardening. Oh, he absolutely loves to garden. And I get involved with that, and make sure that they know that I'm there if they have any questions, and I joke with them a lot. And actually, I'm a jokester, yes, and they know it. So I try to make them laugh as much as possible. I mean, and make sure that they enjoy life. And I take them camping and to the beach and hiking and things like that. I mean, not all of them enjoy doing that. Kate hates hiking and camping, so we do other things together with her.
But there's a sense of normalcy returning, it sounds like.
There is a sense of normalcy returning, but still being wary and still learning to trust, because there is very little trust there to the outside world.
And this has been a recurring theme as I've talked to both Kate and Megan about this, but about mm-hmm. trust. When you talk about trust, can you elaborate? What do you mean by that?
The outside world. It's if a stranger were to come up to me and tell me something, I wouldn't be certain I would trust what they were saying, as well as we have very few outside friends. I mean, very few, to where before we had several. I mean, we had our church family. We had our Kate had friends online. Well, as much as you can have online friends. I actually had a couple of male friends that I was getting to know and things like that. And now we don't trust people. I mean, and so we have very few friends. The only ones that we really trust are family members. So that's what I mean by not being able to trust.
So this experience has really changed you.
Yeah, because all the friends that we had before, none of them stood by us except for one or two. I mean, we have our friends, Carolyn and Craig. I couldn't think of their names. Carolyn and Craig, and the kids have a couple of friends also, but it's hard for them to trust also. So, yeah, it is a recurring theme. Absolutely.
Well, it also sounds like, there's some healing still going on.
Yes.
Fair to say?
That is fair to say. Absolutely.
Do you think this came up as I spoke with both Megan and Kate, but what, if anything, was the purpose of your suffering, what your family went through?
I think it was to grow us.
In what way?
And well, look at Kate. She's going to school. She's getting a 4.0. I mean, she's had a 4.0 all through school. I mean, and before this happened, she never would have thought to go to school. I mean, whatsoever. I mean, she's going to be an attorney.
Right.
And that's something I never would have thought of Kate being, which now she is. So, let's see, Megan, before all this happened, she was a homebody. I mean, and she, wanted to stay home and take care of the home and everything else. But now she's going to school. She's got a 4.2. I think close to a 4.0. So there are things that have happened in our family that have come out of this that I see as good things, because I have, let's see, Megan and Emily and Sarah and David are all going to college next year. I mean, 3 of them are already in college, as well as Kate. But let's see, David will be, and Isaac is graduating this year in high school. I mean,
Charlie.
he's only 16. So,
Charlie, but what about for you? What good has come out of this for you?
I'm much closer to my children. Much closer. I mean, and that I have, I'm no longer working as much as I did. I mean, because honestly, I think that I am a workaholic. If I weren't working, if I were working 60 hours a week, I wouldn't be able to have the time that I do with my children. And if I didn't have a lot of things to do at home, I'd probably be working 60 hours a week. So, right. Because I'm constantly going. I never slow down.
And you're living, as you say, day to day.
Day to day, yes. Mm-hmm.
What's in front of you?
What's in front of me and keeping my faith.
Well, listen, Charlie, I really appreciate your sharing your story. It's moving, and I appreciate your sharing all of the good and the bad. So thank you so much, Charlie.
You're very welcome. Absolutely.
This podcast is sponsored by Republic Book Publishers, which brings you books tackling the important issues of the day and the upcoming book Aftermath, When It Felt Like Life Was Over by Alec Klein. For more information, please check out republicbookpublishers.com. Thank you for joining us today. Please stay tuned for our next podcast involving stories from prisoners, their families, and those helping them find justice and redemption. And please subscribe to the Life on the Other Side podcast on iTunes.